we'll have to see if all these internal changes will work out for them, and see if they can still be in the hunt this year. But going on to the other team, one of the other teams that we mentioned in this division, Baltimore Ravens. 11-5 last year. They got over the hump, beat the Tennessee Titans, but unfortunately lost to the Buffalo Bills in the divisional round. I think they always seem to have a lot of turnover in terms of personnel. So lost Matt Judon, Yannick Ngakwe, wide receiver Willie Snead, also center Matt Skura. Traded away Orlando Brown, as we all know, to Kansas City. Lost RG3 quarterback. I think RG3 is now going to be working with ESPN, so good for him. Also, Mark Ingram also left to Houston. I had a lot of additions. Brought in tackle Jawan James after the Broncos released him, but probably not going to play this season, so kind of don't worry about that name. Brought in Kevin Zeitler, who was surprise cut by the Giants. Alejandro Villanueva, former Steeler, they brought him into. Brought in Sammy Watkins, Justin Houston. And then in terms of the draft, grabbed Rashod Bateman in the first round at 27, and then a guy I'm pretty sure we both liked, edge rusher Odafe Owe, aka I think it was Jason, but now he's going by his birth name, so we all have to say it. Got him at 31, and then also added a guard themselves in the third round in Ben Cleveland. Don't know much about him, but once again, Baltimore, one of those teams that usually knows how to draft offensive linemen, as we've seen. But all right, John, throwing it to you. Do you think that they can get the AFC North crown back? And you think this offense can take the next step with Lamar?
This is a division where I don't feel super confident predicting a winner right now. I think it's between them and the Browns. But I think the Ravens got better. I really liked the offensive lineman they brought in. It did suck that Orlando Brown did not want to play right tackle. He wanted to be a left tackle because obviously having him on the right tackle spot was just awesome for them. But I think Alejandro Villanueva is a fantastic replacement. He's a veteran. He's a lot older, so it does suck long term. But I think in the short term, he's a really good replacement. I thought bringing Kevin Zeitler was awesome. I think he's a really solid guard. He has been ever since Cleveland, and obviously with the Giants, he was solid too. So I like that addition. But I and also once again with Owe, the defensive end they drafted, he's just an athletic monster, and so I can only imagine what kind of schemes they can draw up, including him. And I think he's going to obviously fill in some of the missed snaps that we're going to see after they lost Yannick Ngakwe. So will Justin Houston. But overall, the one thing I think overall disappointed by in their offseason was the way they addressed the wide receiver spot. Wasn't the biggest fan of Rashod Bateman. Maybe he proves us wrong, but I just really haven't heard anything about him in camp. I feel like a lot of the other rookie receivers I've heard stuff about them popping. One guy that I think I had them taking in my mock drafts was Terrace Marshall Jr., and I've just heard nothing but positive things from him with the Panthers training camp. I think he scored a touchdown in every single preseason game so far, including right now they're playing the Steelers, and he already has a touchdown. So I thought they should have taken him. He just feels like a deep threat guy, really big. I thought it was obvious to me. What were you gonna say?
No, I'm just pulling up our mock because I felt the same way, but it's your turn. Go ahead.
Yeah. Anyway, so I think also Hollywood Brown should potentially have potentially a breakout year, quote unquote, that we've been sort of expecting. We've sort of really been hoping that he would become what he was drafted for. And I think this might be the first year that he could truly do that, just because they did add Sammy Watkins, who I don't think Sammy Watkins is going to revolutionize their offense or anything. I don't think that he's amazing at this point in his career, but he's an upgrade from what they had. And then also, like we said, Rashod Bateman, who I'm not as high on him as I was other receivers, but I still think he's good. And still think I'm glad that they addressed it. So I think that this could be an up year for Hollywood Brown. Mark Andrews didn't have the best season last year, but I think he should be a bounce back candidate. We know that Lamar loves him. And also I think that JK Dobbins could have a really solid year. I think he was one of 5 total running backs ever to finish a season where he was averaging over 6 yards a carry. Obviously it was on a very low volume. But that's still an impressive feat, regardless, because yeah, I mean that just shows that he's efficient with the carries he did get last year, and so I think he's due for an increased workload. For any of you fantasy managers out there, though, still beware. He's got a running quarterback, and Lamar is always going to be RB1 in Baltimore, so don't get that twisted.
And they just
But JK
re-signed Gus
Gus
Edwards,
Edwards, yeah. So
vulture.
I wouldn't be over here, thinking that JK Dobbins is going to blow up for you, but I think in real life terms, I think he should help them improve overall. I think also he could have an increased role in the passing game. The Ravens, actually, I think both of the last 2 years have ranked dead last in throwing to their running backs. And I don't know, maybe that's just the scheme that they run. Maybe it's because Lamar would rather take off than dump it off to the guy in the flat. But they preach it every year that they're going to increase the running backs receptions. But I think maybe this could be the year that they finally do it, because it's been a few years of Lamar, and now we're kind of seeing like, okay, like Lamar, you just running, it's not good enough to get us to a Super Bowl. So now we got to come up with new creative ways to get other guys involved with you throwing. And I think Lamar's a very capable passer. He's not a bad passer. I know some people, the narrative around him is that he's not a good passer. He is a good passer. There are certain limitations, like he's not Aaron Rodgers, he's not Patrick Mahomes, but he's not as bad as a lot of people would have you believe. So yeah, and I think they did upgrade their receiver spot overall. So I think we could see a better Ravens team than we did last year. So yeah, it's either them or the Browns who win the division. I think the Browns have the higher potential, but don't sleep on the Ravens.
Yeah. So in regards, I'm gonna start with that because I think that's where I put more of the blame on that on Greg Roman, why their passing
Yeah,
game hasn't evolved, because we saw it in San Francisco. I mean, yeah, and with that offense of Colin Kaepernick, it just once teams started, it's like we mentioned with Seattle, but this was like more of a long term thing. Once teams started figuring out Greg Roman's pass offense, which wasn't that complicated, he didn't keep innovating, and once they figured out the pass game, then the run game became much harder. Then the whole offense kind of went downhill. And yeah, and I'm with you. I think people forget Lamar ran a pro style offense at Louisville. Yeah, he took it at had a few quarterback run designs, and also some of his highlights are just him scrambling and running. But he ran pro style at Louisville, so it's not out of his game to do that. It's just that the Ravens haven't asked him to do that. And yeah, I wasn't a big fan of the Rashod Bateman pick. I actually, in my mock draft, had Kadarius Toney going to them, but still a bigger wide receiver, a more prototypical size number one wide receiver. Because I wasn't impressed with Bateman and coming out, and especially if he hasn't been popping in camp, like that's a little worrying. I mean,
which I don't know if he's not. I just haven't heard anything about
granted,
him,
it
which
is the
seems a little
Ravens. Like they
concerning.
got a lot of good corners, so like he just maybe having a tough time against those guys, which a lot of people do, especially if you're a rookie. But yeah, and then I mean, I like their offseason additions, but other than that, I mean, I like readdressed offensive line. Sammy Watkins is a solid signing if he can stay healthy, but I don't think we expect him to do so. So I think this is really I think they're kind of just banking on, Hollywood Brown started kind of coming on at the end of last season. They Greg Roman started finding ways to get him the ball in his hands. We mentioned came in the league as a speedster. We saw what he did week 1 against Miami a couple of years ago, where he exploded for like 3 touchdowns, like 100 plus yards. So they can do that. It's just, can they be consistent? Can they keep innovating that pass offense, building off the run, which once again, like teams are already so scared of Lamar in the run game. It shouldn't be too complicated just to have a few more wrinkles. So we'll see. But yeah, I love Odafe Adowe just because, I mean, it's just freaking Ravens, man. Just great pick. Him opposite of Justin Houston, he's going to learn. If anything, he was a little raw coming out. Had all the physical tools, just needs to polish up. Utilizing them and technique and such. And no better teacher than the Ravens and Justin Houston alongside. Also has Patrick Queen still, so I still expect this defense to be really good. And I like John mentioned too, I expect this team to really be right in the playoff hunt, and definitely in conversation for winning this division. So there's, and then gosh, next year they get Juwan James back at tackle, so this team could be really good. They got a lot of decisions to make though. Got to re-sign Lamar. I think coming up soon, a couple of years. So they already have been having issues with the contract. So we'll see how that goes for them.